Good morning. My name is Gene Chan, hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded by Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider the following items. Order number 207017 to consider the removal of one significant tree with replacement on private property at 340 Casanana Avenue. Order number 207018 to consider the removal of 3 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1900 Noriega Street. Order number 207019 to consider the removal of one significant tree with replacement on private property at 3832 18th Street. This item is being rescheduled for a later date. If you are here to comment on this item specifically, please leave your contact email address in the chat or send an email to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org to be alerted when the date for this item is set. Order number 207020 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement adjacent to 555 Bryant Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for this hearing items, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make a determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner or representative to speak. Then any member of the public who wants to speak. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. If you are a member of the public who wants to speak, please wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom's raise your hands feature if you're on a computer to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you are dialing in on your phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing by sending your comments to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. First, we will open up the hearing to any public comments. Members of the public may address this hearing on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any public comments?
I don't see any hands at this time.
Yep. Seeing none, I will move on to the first order, 207017 for 340 Casanana Avenue. Mr. Ong, can you start us off?
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm Brian Ong. I'm with San Francisco Public Works, Bureau of Urban Forestry. This is for the tree removal hearing for September 7th, 2022. So I'll just go through this a little bit before I make the first case. So Public Works Strategic Plan is the first goal is to ensure safe, clean, and green infrastructure and public right-of-way. Article 16 is the Urban Forestry Ordinance. It is BUF's mission is to preserve and grow the urban forest while balancing the safety and needs of a growing and evolving city. A removal permit is required to remove street trees and significant trees. Since February 2022, there's been an update to the ordinance. So if the department is removing a tree, a replacement is required within 120 days or added and tracked on a delayed replacement tree report. If a tree cannot be planted in situ, then it must be replanted at a nearby location. If a property owner applicant is granted a removal permit, the department shall require a replacement tree of equivalent value to the one removed or impose an in lieu fee. And so the first order, Public Works Order number 207, 17, is it 8 series? It's just on the
20701.
It's order number 207017.
017. Okay, so this one's
Yeah.
just
A zero
so-
missing.
yeah. At 340 Castaneda Avenue, the removal of one significant tree with replacement on private property. At 340 Castaneda Avenue, the tree is located at the front of the property. The staff has denied the removal and the applicant has appealed. So here is the tree in question. It's a Monterey pine tree. The two lower limbs are end weighted and should be removed. And the tree did have a large limb failure. You can see that the tree is set back on private property. There are concerns about the lien, but as you can see, since 2017, the lien has not changed over the 5 years. There is sidewalk damage, and we would like to understand the scope of root pruning before jumping to removal, what is underneath the sidewalk and what needs to be pruned. There is a large root flare at the trunk, but there's no evidence of heaving or root plate lifting. One of the inspectors went on site and met with the arborist, and they could not find any evidence of root plate lifting. There is some flagging, which is evidence of pitch canker, but not advanced enough to warrant a tree removal yet. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, the staff has denied the tree removal, and the public has protested.
Thank you. May I now have the property owner make its comments? Would that be Eva Monroe?
Hi, this is Eva Monroe, and we share the tree actually with the property owners at 340. That would be Veronica Bell. And and Patrick Bell, and my husband is Mike Monroe. So the tree in question has been one of concern for several years. We think that the perceived lien is increasing. We had an arborist come and check it, and he will probably speak today if he's present. We are requesting that the city permit this tree for removal. Since we live underneath this tree, we have watched a significant limb fall over the years. And contrary to what Jean has commented on, we see a significant lien in this tree. And because of its size, one of our biggest concerns is the damage that would incur should it fall across the street to the houses that face it. They are also very concerned. They're not here right now. They're out of town, but they have expressed concern And the desire that we mentioned that we see a perceived risk in the tree as it is today. We've been away, we came back, we noticed that there were fallings from the tree again. And it's our biggest concern, of course, is it's falling and it is at the end of its life. I would like to also say that over the past year, we have organized with our Forest Hill Association to plant replacement trees in similar canopy and size over the years. We've planted island oaks between the 200 block and the 300 block where we live. And in front of my house, which is green, we have 2 island oaks in close proximity to that tree in hopes that they will replace the canopy once this tree comes down. There are 2 other island oaks across the street, 3, I imagine, and another one further down. And then we have several more trees planted in the 200 block. So we do have a succession planting in mind here to replace the canopy, which marks the character of our neighborhood. But again, the appeal is about removing a tree that we see as a perceived and continuing danger with an increased lien since 2017.
Thank you. May I please have Veronica Bell speak?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I am the property owner at 340 Castaneda, and I just want to echo everything that Eva Monroe said. We've lived here since 2012, and the tree has visually and clearly deteriorated in that amount of time. We've had several instances of branches falling, and both over the years, but increasingly so in the last couple of years. As Eva mentioned, we have a plan for replacement trees, and we want to see the risk of this tree removed so that we can put additional replacement trees while still keeping the visual look of the street. Our neighbors across the street are concerned about this tree. And frankly, I don't blame them. When you walk by the tree on the sidewalk side where you pointed out that there was some collapse on the sidewalk, there is a significant amount of sap that comes out of this tree from one point. There's a huge hole in it where the sap comes out, and it just is unhealthy and very concerning. It's also large enough that if it were to fall or significant branches, it could cause severe damage to a person or to a home or property. And so it's very concerning to us, and we'd like to see it removed, and we're happy to discuss replacement options and make sure that the street maintains its greenery.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? There's a number ending in 067. You may speak.
Yes, good morning. This is Garrett Zwar from Brightview Tree Care Service. I was contacted by the Monroes to perform an ISA level 2 inspection of the pine, the tree in question. And I submitted the application as well as the report recommending for removal. And so to reiterate the homeowner's concerns, I feel that the tree should be removed based on the unbalanced crown causing excessive weight on the side of the tree with the lean, even following the recommendations for the removal of the 2 large limbs. The leverage force from the angle of the tree would still be significant enough to be concerning and worrying about and cause worry about root plate upheaval in the tree falling. The tree itself, from evidence, is around the natural end of its lifespan, 100 years. We think that the HOA that was constructed in the 1920s, and that puts us moving forward here to be 100 years. Monterey pines live between 100 and 150 years. There is historical evidence of tree failures, recent tree failures within the HOA of the same species at the same age. So it's we know that that tree is near the end of its natural lifespan. In my view, based on the historical data provided by the homeowners, the upheaval on the opposite side of the lien is noticeably visible. There is a large hump there. There's very little question as to that having increased over time. There is little apical growth in the crown, meaning that the tree hasn't had much time to correct itself and grow vertically. So we know that that lien has been, increased over the past decade or so. And so we think that tree itself should be removed based off that factor, that it's moving in the wrong direction. Know that there are targets, 2 sidewalks, parking on either side of it, and 2 homes within falling distance of the tree.
30 seconds.
And that there obviously has been sidewalk and upheaval damage providing liability concerns for the homeowners there. And root pruning would be within the critical root zone. Further risking, if there was root pruning done to repair the sidewalk, it would further put the tree into decline.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Diche, you may speak, please.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to comment that it looks like up the street a little ways. Doesn't that look like several stumps of trees that have been removed? Or is that just an area without any grass along the sidewalk there? Well,
This is Brian with San Francisco Urban Forestry. I believe those are new trees that have been planted. There might have been trees there in the past, but I believe those are new trees.
that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nolte, John Nolte.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First off, the homeowners association has come in front of Buff a couple of times in the last couple of years removal of trees. And so that might be some of those trees. And also they've been, aggressively within their homeowners association, have been aggressively removing trees and have a plan with the property owners to replace the trees because they pay into this association. So my only question is, as was stated, that there are 2 trees within 200 feet of this property that these are been replaced on the curb are street trees, and this is what we're supposed to see as new trees in 2 plots 100 feet from this location. I'm a little concerning that here the property owners want to take out this large tree, and here the replacement trees that are being put in toward the curb on the adjacent property next door are so small. So I would, if it is decided to remove this tree, I would make sure that a large stature tree be placed in replacement, because we are taking away from the urban canopy with this large tree. And even though it might be, as the arborist stated, 100 years old, again, these were planted when this area was developed. And so therefore, of course, we want to maintain our urban canopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Eva, I think you spoke already, so I'm just going to ask for any other public comments. If there are none, I will close this item. Next item, order number 207018. To consider removal of 3 street trees adjacent to 1900 Noriega Street. Brian?
This is Brian with San Francisco Urban Forestry. Again, removal of 3 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1900 Noriega Street. The staff has approved the removals and the public has protested. So this is construction related. So here's kind of like an overview of what's going on Noriega Street. There's a driveway being put in over on the left-hand side, and then there's going to be about like 5 trees planted. Here is the same thing over on 26th Ave. There's about 4 trees, existing trees over here. This is the first tree over on the Noriega Street. It's going to be removed, or it was approved for removal. As you can see, it is dying and in decline. So staff has approved this tree for removal, and it can be replaced. This is the second tree. It's a small, stagnated, can be replaced in kind. The removal will allow planting sites to be shifted to result in a net gain of planting sites and trees. So as you can see right behind it, there is a stump. So those trees can be planted, and then this one will be shifted a little bit over so it can be planted again and replaced. This is the third tree that is proposed to be removed, and as you can see, it is in the way of the proposed driveway. But it can be replaced less than 10 feet away with a like-sized tree. The driveway triggers the planting of net gain of trees and the project to pay some in lieu fees and receive credit for trees not being removed over on 26th Ave. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, the staff has approved the removal and the public has protested.
Thank you. Can I have the property owner make its comments? Is the property owner here? Brian Nguyen, you may speak.
Hi, so I'm with Ware Malcolm. We are civil engineers on this project. So in a way, we're representing the property owner. So the project itself is going to be removing 3 trees, but in its place, we're going to be planting 6 trees. So there's going to be an overall net gain of 3 trees. And the trees that are being removed will be replaced with trees in kind. So the trunk diameter of each tree is about 2 inches, and we'll replace them like for like. in different locations to meet the tree ordinance spacing requirements. And this is to make way for that driveway that allows cars to exit the site without having to jump the curb. Because currently in its existing condition, cars exiting the site have to cross over to the existing driveway. Oftentimes they aren't able to do that, so they'll need to jump the curb, damaging any public improvements that are there existing. So with that said, that's the scope of the project, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any public comments at this time? Okay, John Nolte.
Yes, good morning. Since these trees are in the, I believe the sunset, I would, you know, I have an issue with the, being said, okay, we're going to replace more trees than are there, but then we also see that some of the trees are missing, and so basically you're not really replacing 3 trees with 6, so doubling in size, and also because of the tree ordinance, you're spacing because they have to be spaced every 10 feet. So therefore, you're really not doing anything new here. All I'm hearing is you're removing trees that are not surviving their planting, and we have a low survival rate of any street tree being planted. And these trees have, survived. And now we have this project of putting in a driveway. So the car supersedes the tree, and somehow the civil engineers weren't able to work around the current tree that is there, and the other 2 just happen to be not as in good condition, so therefore they want to be removed. I would suggest that all 6 trees be a 24-inch box size, since these are, we want these trees to survive, and not, obviously these are smaller box sizes that are currently in these plots, so a bigger box size would survive if this is to move forward, so that the neighborhood can enjoy bigger size trees and also have more to the tree canopy of San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you. Iche?
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so this tree by the driveway, I have several concerns about. Number one, I don't think we should lose any trees whatsoever that are savable in order to preserve what we have of canopy. So speaking from that point of view of the tree, I look at the driveway and I do not see why that curb can't just be leveled and that become the driveway. I'd like to know that. I mean, is there
Is that all your comments?
and in addition, I would oppose taking down that tree for the purposes of construction, because the public interest in keeping the trees is greater than the private interest in conducting their project. That's it.
Thank you. Brian Nguyen, I have a question for you. did the project consider retaining the tree, and was it possible to construct a driveway next to that tree? Brian?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. So, okay. So we did consider the tree. Since, we are sensitive to all trees and we would rather keep them than remove them. But we ran some car turning simulations to see if cars can make a right turn well out of flattening that existing curb. We found that it was less than ideal for those maneuvers to happen. So we made the recommendation of removing the tree and relocating it away from that opening.
So can you kind of explain to me what was exactly less than ideal?
Well, so the car will have to make 2 maneuvers to make a right turn. So it's got to veer left in order to turn right, which puts the car it places it in a less ideal position to make a right turn. It's pointing left to turn right.
Okay, so that driveway in your simulation, would that be to the west of the tree or the east of the tree?
It would be to the east of the tree.
Okay, so that would coincide with the driveway next door.
Yeah, it would be like a shared driveway, which is non-conforming.
Well, almost an extended driveway. kind of.
Yeah, yeah, it would be wider than the public works standard.
Which, if in that case, then if the 2 driveways are combined, then you would need to make a left before making a right.
You would still need that situation would still occur. Now, if we didn't do that, let's just say we didn't remove that tree, well, then we don't trigger the tree ordinance. Is that correct? Because we're not removing a tree in that situation. So then we aren't subject to replanting any additional trees.
I would defer that to Brian Ong.
Brian, San Francisco Urban Forestry, because there is a curb cut, that is what's triggering our code, not the tree removal. It's the
curb cut. Okay.
curb cut. Yeah.
Again, I mean, I would say it's a traffic hazard. If you have to veer left to turn right, that's a life safety issue that probably takes precedence over trees.
Now, if the project was able to extend that driveway next door and continue that driveway to where the tree is, would the project be amenable to that situation?
I mean, we'd have to take a look at it.
Mhm.
And then, we would need some way to fast track that approval, because I believe extending that driveway would make it larger than 10 feet in width. And so hopefully we can get, planning on board to allow that to happen quickly.
Mhm.
Because we've been dealing with this for a while now. So we'd like to move forward with
Okay.
the construction.
This lot is being used as just a parking lot?
Yes,
Okay, is there another entrance on the other side on 26?
it's one way.
It's just one way?
Yeah.
So the cars are backing in?
No, they're coming in from 26
Oh,
and then
okay,
leaving Noriega.
okay. Okay, got it. Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, if not, I will close this item. So our last item is order number 207020 at 555 Bryant.
This is Brian with San Francisco Urban Forestry. This is for 555 Bryant Street. It's the removal of 2 street trees with replacement adjacent to 555 Bryant Street. The staff has denied the removals and the applicant has appealed. So this is for construction purposes as well. They're putting in a new building and a driveway. And here's kind of like the proposed planting plan. So they propose on planting 7 trees on Bryant Street, extending the sidewalk, making it wider, and planting 7 trees. And then also 8 trees over on Wells Street. Currently right now, Wells Street, there are no trees because the sidewalk is too narrow, but they are extending it, making it wider, so they'll be able to plant new trees. So here's the first tree. These Brisbane Box Trees. It looks, it's healthy and sustainable. The tree can be pruned in order to put any type of scaffolding or anything like that, and do construction. Here's like another close-up of the trunk. Again, they will be extending the sidewalk, but as long as there's a 4 to 6 foot path of travel, the city is okay with leaving the tree in its place, and then people can, there's still a clear path, the direct path down the block, and then the basin can be enlarged to accommodate any, mitigate any sidewalk damage. Here's the second tree. It's got a few vehicle damage to the tree. Again, same thing. The tree can be pruned in order to do construction. And when the sidewalk gets expanded, then cars wouldn't be able to hit the tree if it were to remain. So to be consistent with how we deal with similar cases, Buff has denied the removal of the 2 tree removals.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the property owner or its representative make its comments? I believe that might be John Kevlin.
Can you hear me, Mr. Hearing Officer?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Officer, and thank you, Mr. Ong. Good morning, John Kevlin here with Ruben Junius Rose on behalf of the project sponsor, Bryant Property LLC. Hey, we provided a PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Ong, is that something that you can put up on the screen, and I can ask you to switch through the slides as we go through?
Yeah, so Cerise, I'll stop sharing my screen, and then Cerise will be able to put it on hers, and then
Great.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay, next slide, please. The proposed tree removal at 555 Bryant Street is necessary in order to complete the construction and offsite improvements related to this project. Next slide, please. The 555 Bryant Street project consists of 501 residential units, including 74 units of affordable housing. The project received approval in June of 2021 in conformance with the Central Soma Plan and its Housing Sustainability District. This is in fact the first Housing Sustainability District project to be delivered in San Francisco, providing critical housing units, in particular, helping moving the bar quite a bit forward towards the goal of building 10,000 new housing units in Central Soma. The project underwent extensive review of plans, both by the planning department staff as well as the UDAT and SDAT teams prior to its approval. So there's been quite a bit of input from all of the various agencies, DPW, SFMTA, DBI, DPW, getting the streetscape plan approved. And the project, as a result, the project includes extensive offsite improvements, including sidewalk widening and utility upgrades on both Bryant Street and Wells Street. Next slide, please. So what you're going to see here is that the project requires the removal of the 2 existing trees on Bryant Street. Next slide, please. The project will replace these 2 trees with 15 new trees on the site, as Mr. Ong mentioned. This will include 7 trees along Bryant Street and 8 trees on Wells Street. That is 7 times more trees than in the public realm than exists today. The 2 street trees along Bryant cannot be left in place for several reasons. Next slide, please. First, tree number 1, which is on the right here, is located within the drive aisle to the parking garage at the new building. This drive aisle has been approved and reviewed by planning, and we're currently processing the street improvement permit for this. So this tree directly conflicts with the operation of this new building. Next slide, please. Tree number 2 is located in the center of the new sidewalk, as is tree number 1. So the sidewalk is being widened. So first, the tree would not meet the 9-foot wide pedestrian zone required by the City Department of Accessibility. And then just kind of as a larger practical issue, this tree is going to be right smack dab in the center of this widened sidewalk, which is supposed to improve pedestrian accessibility and comfort. Next slide, please. This is a major construction project, 501 new housing units, 160 feet in height, excavation 30 feet below grade.
30
35 feet
seconds.
below grade. Thank you. And both trees will conflict with the safe and successful construction. If the trees are required to remain and be protected, key construction activities will be less safe, take longer, resulting in greater neighborhood and traffic disruption. Specific disruptive activities that will take longer include soil off-haul, major concrete pours, exterior skin installation, and major material deliveries. So we request that the director approve the street removal conditioned on issuance of the site permit. And so in closing, the removal of the 2 street trees are necessary for the construction of this important city project. Will be replaced with 7 times the number of street trees, all of which are consistent with the city tree guidelines, and will make way for sidewalks that are safer and more accessible than today. Thank you, and I'm here if you have any questions, Mr. Hearing Officer.
Thank you. I'll open it up to public comments right now. Any public comments? DJ?
Yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, again, I think that our trees take priority over all considerations for environmental reasons, the health and safety of the public. I think it's very nice of the builders to be planning to put in, what is it, 7, whatever, numerous more trees. I say go ahead and do that, but go back to the drawing boards on removing these healthy, valuable trees. That's it. It's just a question of what has priority. And I think that the plans are adaptable to keeping the trees.
Thank you. John Nolte?
Yes, good morning. This location is in the Soma location, and it has the least amount of tree coverage in the city. Again, this project is putting in street trees with the streetscape on both sides of the property. Therefore, these trees are being spaced at 10 feet apart, which per the code is what they're supposed to do. So we're really not adding any trees. This is just part of the code, part of planning to put in trees every 10 feet of property line. So, and since the streetscaping on the Wells Street is an improvement to the neighborhood, that would help with those trees being planted. And now for the trees that are on the Bryant Street side, they should have considered where to put the entrance to the parking garage underneath. before deciding to knock out a tree, especially when you see in the pictures of there's one building where these two trees are in front of, and then the next building over is a parking lot. So therefore, that's an empty site. So they could have, easily put, the entrance over there, but they chose to put it at this location. So since the attorney is only speaking on behalf of this investment group, I suggest I would like to hear from the engineering or the streetscaping entity or something that besides the attorney who went through this process with planning and DPW and so forth. So my only statement also last is that the two street trees should stay. They are not at the end of their life cycle, and I'm sure that Brian can discuss the health of the two current trees that are there and how much more life they have of as being street trees since they are in pretty good shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, John Kevlin, I have questions for you.
Yes, I'm here.
Has the sidewalk legislation been performed for the sidewalk extension?
I believe we're in the process of both the street improvement permit as well as the sidewalk legislation.
Okay. Have the curb ramps been reviewed by the access coordinator?
Yes, we've already gotten comments back about needing to provide at least the 9-foot wide pedestrian zone.
Okay, 9-foot wide pedestrian zone sidewalk, but what about the curb ramps themselves? I see that there's 2 curb ramps on the sidewalk extension on Bryant.
Yeah, and what I can say is that it has been reviewed by SDAT during the planning entitlement process and currently under review by city staff in particular at DPW with respect to the sidewalk legislation and the streetscape improvement permit. I'm sorry, I don't have that level of detail about the curb ramps themselves.
Okay, I'm just wondering if the comments preclude the adjacent tree from being planted.
You're talking about the new street tree shown on the screen right now?
Yeah. So if on Bryant, the 4th one from the left, I'm just a little, I guess, concerned whether or not that curb ramp is possible with the tree there. Gotcha.
Yeah, and this is the exact, as you're aware, during the SDAT process, which happens during the planning entitlement, it's kind of the early level, high level review of kind of the streetscape, and it's really the streetscape improvement permit and the sidewalk legislation where we really get into that detail. My client is telling me that this has at least been through one round of review at DPW, so we have some confidence that this plan that's in front of you today has gone through at least the first round of vetting at DPW. We don't have the permit approved yet, but this has gone through at least one round of review, including the curb ramps.
Okay. Do you remember which city departments were at SDAT? Did it include water department?
I don't believe the water department is included in SDAT. SDAT is planning, building, DPW, SFMTA, and then the mayor's office on disability is now included in that group.
Okay. Another question. Was there any consideration to keep the existing trees? I know that the driveway is there, so that would mean that the building layout would probably have been flipped. So the driveway approach would have been on the south end rather than the north end of the building.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. And let me just kind of make this overarching comment. There's very little control that a project sponsor has over the streetscape, including the garage location, especially when it comes to these much larger projects in SOMA. Much of this is actually not really designed by the project sponsor. It's designed by SDAT and various members of staff. You know, the way SDAT works out is that typically some agencies have, you know, more interest or care more about certain items on certain projects, right? So I wouldn't say it's kind of an equal input from everyone. You know, it depends on how much one agency or another cares about a specific item. But just want to make that first overarching comment that this design, in particular the location of the garage, is only somewhat within the control of the project sponsor. The other thing I'll say is that the reason that the driveway has been pushed to the far east of this site is that we're one lot away from the on-ramps to the freeway. And so there was a lot of interest from the city to move this garage entry as far away from that major intersection as possible in order to reduce any conflicts with the operation of that intersection, which is obviously, if you've ever been there, it's complicated, right? It's two main streets in SOMA, as well as the on-ramps and off-ramps to the freeway. So that was one major reason why this garage entry got pushed to the place where it is, and unfortunately conflicts with one of the street trees. The other thing I'll mention is that we have pedestrian loading that's happening on the rest of the Bryant Street frontage. And so part of the idea here as well is to separate these two uses as much as possible, the parking garage entry and the pedestrian loading, such that we don't have cars queued up for trying to get into the garage and then impacting visibility and accessibility of pedestrians with on-street loading along Bryant Street, right? So it was also to kind of rationalize as much as possible and keep those two on-street operations as separate as possible. And the final thing I'll just remind everyone is that even if the garage wasn't in the location it is today, the fact is that as requested by the city, we are almost doubling the size of this sidewalk. And even if the garage was not there today, these two trees would be right in the center of the sidewalk, undermining, you know, normal pedestrian usage, and even more importantly, not meeting the requirements of the mayor's office on accessibility, which, you know, has quite a bit of influence during this process. So regardless of the location of this garage entry, we'd be essentially forced to be here in front of you today because we're not going to get approval for leaving trees in the middle of that sidewalk for those reasons. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm here if you got any other questions.
Yeah, so on Bryant Street, the pedestrian loading zone, is that just a pedestrian, I mean, is that just a passenger loading zone, or will there be parking?
No, it's loading. I believe there's no parking along this street.
Okay, so that live lane will be gone? I don't know if you know that.
Here, hold 1 second. Yeah, that's right. No on-street loading along Bryant Street. It's only, sorry, no on-street parking along Bryant Street. That lane is being converted to on-street pedestrian loading.
Okay. So the live lane will be gone?
I believe that's right. Yeah, the one lane is being reduced on Bryant Street to accommodate both the sidewalk expansion and then the on-street loading.
Okay. Do you have the comments from the access coordinator in regards to the 9-foot sidewalk request?
I don't, but I can provide that to you after this hearing, so you can include that in your consideration.
Sure. Can you send it to Urban Forestry at sfdpw.org?
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to CC Mr. Ong as well, just so he's in the middle of it all.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I will close this item. Are there any public comments on any of the agenda items for today? If you have spoken, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is for those who may have come in late or who did not have a chance to speak. Okay, if there are no more public comments, I will be closing this hearing. This hearing is now closed. Thank you all.